Oh,
A minute, yeah.
gotta wait. One minute. I think we can get cracking now. But so take two. Good evening, members. I'd like to remind everyone that this meeting will be filmed live or recorded and uploaded to the internet and will be capable of repeated viewing. Therefore, by participating in this meeting, you are consenting to being filmed and to the possible use of those images and sound recordings. If any public speakers on MS Teams do not wish to have their image captured, they should turn off their video setting throughout the meeting and this is turned off and set to audio only. Members, I don't need to remind you again, but when you're speaking, please turn your microphones on, and when you're finished, turn them off. Item 2, apologies for absence.
I've got Councillor Kesker.
Thank you. On declarations of interest, are there any members with a declaration of interest? No. Apart from myself in that case, on item 10, on food and garden waste collections, there is a mention of Essex County Council on there and conversations and negotiations in that situation. Therefore, I will declare and withdraw from the meeting on that particular item. Minutes of the last meeting, can I take those as being agreed? Thank you. And any reports of portfolio holders? Before we get started, I'll make a couple of quick reports. The first one, you will see a slightly different composition of the Cabinet in future. Nigel Bedford still with us and still working hard for his residence in Northfield, but has recently moved and will be still playing an active part, but will no longer be in the Cabinet because of the work that requires in itself. I have made the decision to reduce the Cabinet by one in that case and to dissolve the portfolio currently held by Councillor Smriti Patel and to share that amongst other Cabinet members, and I will make members aware of the makeup of that position later on, and Councillor Smriti Patel will be taking on the housing portfolio holder role in future. So from the point of view of the Council, the Cabinet will be smaller, and I thought that's a very important thing to do at a time when we're asking our officers to find further savings as part of this year's budget round. So the Cabinet will now be one person less as we move forward. Members, I can't start this evening without mentioning the events over recent weeks in Epping, which saddened me greatly as a resident of the town. I would first of all like to put on record my thanks to the police and the emergency services who have worked tirelessly during this time. Also to our own officers who have played an active role in everything that has been going on, to the fact that Andrew and myself were speaking on a regular basis, even late into the evening, about the issues that we are facing. I think we all agree that residents have a right to peacefully protest, and I have sympathy with what they're protesting about. However, the violent extremes that we have seen are hugely disappointing and do not help to achieve what those demonstrating peacefully are trying to achieve. In fact, it probably puts us in a worse position than what we were before. They are not doing Epping any favours. Indeed, it saddens me greatly to see that type of behaviour. It's a real shame for those people who are doing what they feel is right, peacefully and respectfully. I would plea make a plea that people help us to return to calm and civility as quickly as possible. This council has always said that the Bell Hotel was not suitable for its present uses. We said it back in 2020 when it was being used for families, and we certainly reiterated our concerns in April this year when it was stepped up as an asylum seeker refuge again, but for single males. It is completely inappropriate for that usage. Unfortunately, we've had the events of the past 2 weeks which have made matters worse. And of course, one of the places that I always come from is community cohesion. That's first and foremost in my mind when we deal with this issue. I call again for everybody to be calm and support their local community. Over the past weeks, we have been working with the local MPs and we have been working with a variety of partners to try and achieve what we are seeking to do, including the Home Office officials, and we continue to do so. We will work tirelessly to try and get the best outcome for the people of Epping. That will not be achieved and is not being achieved by those people who feel violence is the way forward. Members, I will make a fuller statement shortly, which will be released to the press in the coming days. My thoughts are with those who have been affected by this. My thoughts are with my town that I've lived in for 60 years, and I trust and hope that we can return to calm and sensible behaviour as quickly as possible. Thank you. Members, any other reports to give? Councillor Williamson.
Thank you, Leader. It's just an update on the South of Epping master plan and the petition. We did receive the petition a couple of weeks ago. It is with Democratic Services at the moment. I had a quick look through. I'd just like to make a few comments, if I may. It was noted that there were 2,175 signatures. I had a quick look through and I can only see something like 420 or thereabouts from within the district. But one anomaly is that the very first item is the Epping Society. So they're down as one person in this petition. I can't see any of the members of the Epping Society that I'm aware of actually have signed it in their individual role. So so it's more than 420 is probably what, if it's unanimous through the Epping Society, I don't know what their membership is. I think we must make it clear that normally it's a petition against a planning application. There is no planning application in at the moment, so we can only take it into account in the master plan work that's going on. I'd like to point out that this is not part of Epping Forest, it's not buffer lands, and it's not green belt. And there was a previous reduction from 950 homes to 450. The 3 points that raised in the petition, I couldn't obviously respond because I didn't know what the petition was on the evening I received it. It's the first time I'd actually seen it. Item 1 was respect the views of your constituents, which we always try and do. I very much look forward to going to Hawaii and Brisbane, who also signed this petition. Number 2 is abandon the current plan. Well, that cannot be done. I've explained countless times that this is an allocated site within the local plan. If we don't do this, then we lose the right to actually decide where development goes. I'm more than happy to work with the residents, the Epping Society, anybody in the district to make sure that what is built there is the right thing for the place. But we cannot abandon the site. And the third one was, I thought, strange wording, acknowledge that your first duty is to the residents of Epping and represent their views. As the portfolio holder, I believe I represent all residents in Epping Forest District, not just Epping. There are residents in Buckstill, Loughton Nonga, Abridge, Thaden Boys. that we represent their views as well. That's pretty much where we are. I previously, on a previous occasion, said that the principle of development was absolutely established. I got pilloried in the press, so I'll be more measured in what I say. Basically, the principle of development on this site is absolutely established. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Holly Whitbread.
Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to note, and it will probably be or hopefully be discussed more fully at full council, but just wanted to note the sad passing of Wyn Marshall, who was the former chairman of the Tenants and Leaseholders Association. Wyn was a really great guy who I had opportunity to work alongside as the Cabinet Member for Housing for several years, and also on the Communities Select Committee before that. So I just want to send my best wishes to his family and friends. He was a real servant to the community locally, particularly in Loughton, where he was from, but also a great friend to this council and actually the cause of social housing. So I just wanted to pass on my best wishes, and hopefully you'll have a chance to do that more fully at full council. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Isfy.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. It was just to bring to the attention of members that we, owing to the events of last week, we had the one-year anniversary celebration planned for the community lottery, and because of the events last Thursday, 17th, we had to postpone that, and that will be rescheduled, hopefully, to a date coming up in autumn.
Thank you. Public questions and requests to address the Cabinet.
There are none, Leader.
Thank you. Report of overview and scrutiny. Councillor Baldwin.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm delighted to continue in my role as the Chairman of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee. We held our first meeting on the 10th of June, when the Leader set out the Council's priorities for the year, and we agreed an interesting work programme which contained the scrutiny of a range of issues and policies, and some external parties, including TfL, will be invited to attend. We consider the separation of garden and food waste, and concerns were raised at the meeting with further details being referred to the Place Committee on the 1st of July. That item, of course, is on the agenda tonight, and I believe the report has now been shaped by the discussion that we had in ONS. I'd like to thank Officers James Warwick and Owen Sparks for answering in a very detailed manner questions posed by Councillor Mandy George. They gave very detailed and full written responses via email. So thank you for that. Also, due to the timing of the last meeting of the ONS, we did not have any financial reports to consider, and these are on the agenda. This evening, but there will be an opportunity for scrutiny at our next meeting on the 5th of August, when we will be scrutinising the Q4 budget monitoring report, the provisional one for 2024 for 2025, as this is an important function of the committee. Lastly, we do consider Cabinet business at every meeting, and LGR and the budget are areas that will be of interest in the coming months. I'm confident that we can provide an effective scrutiny this year, and I welcome any suggestions from Cabinet for inclusion in the scrutiny process. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Baldwin. Any comments on Councillor Baldwin's report? No? Okay, thank you very much. Item 8, Waltham Abbey North Strategic Master Plan Framework. Councillor Williamson.
Thank you, Leader. This report is to bring the draft Waltham Abbey North Strategic Master Plan Framework to Cabinet to go out to formal consultation. The development, it responds to the adopted Epping Forest District Local Plan, Allocation Policy P3, Waltham Abbey. The master plan area forms one of the allocated strategic master plan sites where the need for an SMF is identified. Following the requirements in policies SP2 placemaking and P3 Waltham Abbey, the strategic master plan has been developed for the allocated strategic area. The master plan is allocated for a minimum of 740 homes, a local centre including retail, community facilities and appropriate provision of green and blue infrastructure. A saying was not deemed required for this site due to its proximity to the Lee Valley Regional Park. The framework has been subject to informal public consultation spanning between 2021, where the local community and town council were consulted, to the summer of 2024, when the SMF was presented at a quality review panel. The following informal consultation and QRP reviews, the SMF has been updated to reflect those comments as appropriate. It's been developed collaboratively and has been reviewed by the local planning authority, Essex officers as part of the planning performance agreement process. The master plan has also been reviewed by the council's quality review panel 2 times in 2021 and 2024. A briefing was organised for Waltham Abbey councillors. I accept that this was at relatively short notice, and I'm grateful to those members who did take part. Therefore, I recommend that the Waltham Abbey North Strategic Master Plan framework be approved for formal consultation. That will run for 8 weeks between the end of July and the end of September.
Thank you. Members, any questions? No? Councillor Morris.
Yeah, hi, thanks very much. Yeah, I did attend the briefing and I did make this point at the briefing, but having reviewed the master plan overall, there are going to be 2 exits from the site, one onto the Crooked Mile and one onto Parklands. In the original local plan, it was identified that there would be an improvement of the junction with Galley Hill Road and Parklands, which is heavily used by businesses in the Galley Hill Road, and it has heavy traffic, lots of HGVs and big vehicles, and that junction is desperately in need of improvement. I notice it's not included in the master plan now because Essex Highways didn't approve the use of Galley Hill Road, but I would like to see at least some infrastructure money put aside for improving that junction, which is really desperately needed, partly just to cope with the sheer volume of traffic that goes in and out of there, and also to make that junction safer. Similar comment goes to the junction with Crooked Mile, but it's the junction with Galley Hill Road that we've had the most experience with. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Morris. Councillor Williamson.
Yeah, thank you first for attending the meeting and bringing the points up. That junction, that's, I think, hopefully going to be covered under the monies we raise under the next item. So I think it's very timely interjection. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other questions? No. Therefore, I'm going to ask members to agree the recommendations as set out. Thank you. Okay, we now move on to item 9, the Community Infrastructure Plan Draft. Councillor Williamson.
Thank you, Leader. This report is before Cabinet to start the consultation process as outlined in the report. This is an extremely complex report with the attached papers running to 425 pages. I'm happy to answer questions tonight on the principles involved, but suggest that any detailed questions be dealt with during the consultation period. The consultation is an important step to delivering infrastructure improvements, as we've just heard, throughout the district. Section 106 agreements will still be included for improvements that are site-specific, so this sits on top of our current arrangement. Thank you.
Thank you. Members. Councillor Morris.
Sorry. Yeah, I just had one point about. I did briefly read through all the reports that are included in this, and I had a couple of questions. Was who's expected to respond to the public consultation? It wasn't clear to me. And I did look at the viability assessment. It runs to 300 pages. Is there going to be a summary produced, which would probably help with getting more responses to a document of that size? Thank you.
Councillor Williamson.
I think, if I may, I'd defer to the experts on that particular point. Thank you.
We're fortunate to have Tim Parton from DAC Planning, so if you don't mind, I'll pass this over to him.
Please do.
Hi, thank you. So in terms of who will respond, well, it's a public consultation, so anyone can respond to it. From previous experience doing civil consultations in other areas, it does tend to be the development industry because it's them that will be affected most by this change. But anyone is welcome to make comments through the consultation. In terms of a summary of the viability assessment, hopefully you'll have seen in the appendices to the report that there is a booklet explaining what SIL is and the evidence-based material. So there's a brief summary of the viability assessment there. And then also one of the appendices was the charging schedule, and that really is the key conclusion coming out of that viability work. The viability assessment does a lot of reviewing of the area, identifying costs, and its conclusion is that there can be certain rates applied to new development in the area, and then that charging schedule is what's being consulted on. So really the viability assessment is a background document. They are often quite complex and difficult to deal with, so that's why we have got the consultation booklet. There's a 2-page summary leaflet as well, and there's a consultation questionnaire to help people respond to the consultation. So hopefully that does help people respond. It's certainly our intention to make it as easy as possible for people.
Thank you. Councillor Kaufman.
Thank you, Chairman, and apologies for lateness. The day job sometimes still gets in the way. I have had a look at this. This is such a complex document, and we are at a time in the market where very few schemes are actually coming forward and very few schemes are actually viable. And with Mr. Richardson here, I wonder if there's anything we can do to focus on the key providers of schemes in the district and ask them to come in for a session on this. It's so complicated. We won't get responses from members of the public, and everyone's running around like idiots these days. But with a calm head, some of the delivery partners should look at this and see if there are any particular health warnings that are specific to Epping Forest and our delivery. Can we do something to facilitate that, please?
Thank you, Councillor Kaufman. I'll go to Councillor Williamson first to see who he wants to pass this to.
Yeah, I think that's something we will try and look at. I can't promise that it can be fitted in, but I would have thought they would all be participating in this anyway, the local developers. It's something that's probably key to everything they're doing, but it does answer the point that was raised about this junction that will not have any needs work done to it and will not have anything done under the site that it's adjacent to but not part of.
Councillor Kaufman.
Thank you for letting me come back. So what is the duration of this, the consultation, and how can we see that we do get positive feedback? You know, I'm involved in one in my day job for the London Borough of Hackney, and only 2 people have bothered to respond because it's too complicated and everyone's rushing around, they're too busy, and we haven't had any positive feedback and we want it. So it would be good to have a positive, not that just no one bothered. Can we be proactive?
It runs for 8 weeks. I read out the dates. I think to the end of September it runs. So, yeah, we'll try and be proactive. We'll see what we can put in place to make that work. But you can't force people to do this, but I accept your point. It's worth having a look at. Thank you.
Councillor Williamson, if I may just interject, I'll come to Councillor Whitehouse in a moment. If I may just interject, I think it's really important that we do everything we can, as Councillor Kaufman said, to engage with our partner developers, or not developers across who deliver in this area, because that's going to be vital to us, especially at this difficult time in the construction industry. So anything we can do to make sure we publicise this fully will be helpful. Councillor Whitehouse.
Thanks, Chairman. Yeah, perhaps as an Epping councillor and as first council meeting since recent events, I would just like to say how horrified I've been by recent events in Epping and people's willingness to exploit, those events for violence and their own ends. But there'll be more to say about that at the council meeting on Thursday. On this item, I've been trying to work out what, if anything, this means for residential extensions, annexes and small-scale developments. And I read the bit about them not being exempt in one part of it, but about all other development being £0. So do I understand this correctly, that although technically not exempt, they won't be levied they won't be levied. And there's been some fairly well publicised examples, I think, in Surrey of where people who could have not been charged a levy were charged a levy because they didn't fill in the correct form or failed to fill in the correct form, one or the other. And could you just clarify what the situation would be in Epping Forest if this is adopted? And in particular, can we make steps to make sure that inadvertent form-filling mistakes don't result in massive bills?
Thank you. Councillor Williamson.
Thank you. Yeah, there is a minimum requirement. I think I'll pass to the experts on this. There is a minimum size in the document that SIL doesn't apply to. On the other bit, I can't give an undertaking that somebody fills in a wrong form and nothing happens. But I take your point, I think. But let's see what the answer is on the size thing first, which may answer the majority of your point.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, it's 100 square metres, and then there are opportunities to make certain types of development exempt, and you can make a decision on that as a charging authority, which the council would be. In terms of form filling, there are situations where if you don't put in the relevant notices, then you can be asked to pay the levy earlier than you would usually have to. So we're including instalments policy within the charging schedule to spread the payments across the life of a development. But if you fail to provide the correct forms, then the charging authority could charge all that, the SIL requirement up front. But there is the chance, as the charging authority to manage that in a different way. So you can consider that as you go forward.
So just to be clear, does the 100 square metre exemption, is that automatic, or do people need to sort of declare that their development is less than 100 metres in order to escape from the SIL?
Yeah, it forms part of the planning application process. So once you get an approval for development, you would then submit your forms in relation to the levy as well. So it becomes part of the process. And we'll work with the council to make sure that all the information is really clear on the website and people are informed about it. And there's still a fair way to go. We would go through this consultation and then the charging schedule will get examined. So we're not expecting it to become adopted until later in the new year. So there's a good period of time to make people aware that this is coming. And as part of our work with other authorities, we do go through a process of speaking to the development industry in the area as well, so that they fully understand when it's going to be coming in. Because it does affect planning applications that are in the process around the time it gets adopted. So developers may want to put in their application earlier or later, depending on when the council's going to adopt the SIL.
Thank you. Mr Richardson.
Sorry, Councillor Williamson. I think the consultation period is actually 6 weeks rather than 8. And the other thing about the SIL viability assessment, if you look at page 20 in the report, paragraph 14, it does stating there that evidence was collected from various sources, including questionnaire surveys with local, regional and national housing developers and registered providers operating within the area. So some of this work has already been done, and yeah, so we're at the stage now where we're ready to go to consultation.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Will Kaufman.
Thank you, Chair. Can I get technical for a second on the SIL point? Because have they changed the legislation yet? It relates purely to floor space created. Is there any way that we can provide a provision within, I think it's probably clutching at straws because of the nature of the statutory instrument, but the solar farms is what's got my attention, whether or not there's a way that we can build into the SIL charging schedule some way of tackling that, because of course we're looking almost in certain cases at 100% site coverage. But I gather, of course, there's not floor space that people are going into on a regular basis. I'd just like to make sure that when those schemes do come in, that we're not missing out on any opportunity that we can take.
Councillor Williamson.
Thank you, Leader. Thank you for the question. It is something we have in mind. We have thought about it. It is an incredibly technical piece of work, that particular one, but it is something that we hope to look in detail during the consultation period.
Thank you. Members, no other questions. Can we agree to recommendations so we can go out to consultation on this one? Thank you. Okay. I will now depart from the chair and hand over to Councillor Balcombe to take item 10 on food and garden waste collection.
Okay, item 10. Food and garden waste collection service proposals. The documents you've all had and read. I will just go through a few points on it first of all. As you are aware, Epping Forest District Council is planning to separate its food and garden waste collection service starting April 26, aligning with the other Essex councils and current legislation. This change aims to reduce costs and improve service efficiency while introducing a subscription charge for garden waste to maintain financial sustainability. EFDC will collect food waste weekly and garden waste fortnightly, beginning April 26. Depending on the availability of the food waste vehicles, this aligns with the legislation requiring weekly food waste collection. Officers will continue to negotiate with the Essex County Council to secure funding for new food waste collection service to support its implementation. An annual subscription fee for garden waste collection will be proposed during the 26-27 budget process, recommending a £60 for fortnightly collections, ensuring the service cost is neutral and financially sustainable. The current combined food and garden waste service, costing approximately £2.1 million annually, will be replaced by a separate collection estimated at £1.9 million per year, saving £200,000 annually. The garden waste service will pause for 2 weeks in December and January to optimise resources use and possibly support community initiatives like the Christmas tree collection. This has been discussed at both overview and scrutiny and place scrutiny committee meetings and at executive briefing. As I say, the paperwork is in front of you. James Warwick is here with me to help answer some questions. So, members. Councillor Owen.
Yeah, so here's where I'm at with this one. I do have concerns that when we start charging residents that it encourages bad behaviour, primarily like next to the forest sites, that people might just start dumping garden waste into the forest and this type of activity. I also have I know we don't have to collect people's garden waste, but we currently do, and I also have an issue with us charging for services that are currently given as a way to raise revenues. I think we should have raised council tax over the years to battle this type of issue that we've got now. And yeah, they're my comments on the matter. Thank you.
Well, I will hand that one over to James in a second. But first of all, I don't actually see it being any more of a problem than it is now. We're getting rubbish dumped now. Why should it make it any different? James, would you like to follow that up on the second point?
In terms of an increase in fly tipping, as previously said at Overview and Scrutiny and Place Committee, where this has been introduced in the majority of the country, it hasn't led to an increase in bad behaviour and people dumping their garden waste. EFDC has previously charged for garden waste. It is a means of protecting frontline services and kind of balancing the budgets.
Councillor Wiskin.
Thank you, Chairman. I don't think we should delude people. This is simply a cost-saving exercise. A question, you did say it was cost-neutral on the paperwork alludes to a surplus generated of £259,000 from the green waste. So I would say that people will see this as a council tax rise, as simple as that. I do have concerns about multi-tenanted properties where has there been adequate consultation to make sure that they can accommodate the changes coming forward. Small examples I've come across would seem to counter that they will have difficulty in maintaining the numbers of bins, etc. The other point I want to make is that going down the route of LGR, and it's quite likely, given the recent paperwork, that we'll be merged with the middle tier of Essex, be it Harlow, Chelmsford, Malden, Brentwood, ourselves. I have concerns that from a holistic view, are we spending money capital-wise equipping vehicles down the road when we don't really know what the end result will be with other councils which have currently got completely different systems. The other four authorities have different bins, they have bags, they have sacks. The question is that would it be better not waiting till we put everything in the right alignment? Yes, I know it would mean another 200 grand less for this council, but overall, would that perhaps not be a better way to consider it? Thank you.
Well, taking the last point first, I think Mr Small wants to come in on that one first of all.
Thank you, Councillor Balcom. I mean, in general point about local government reorganisation and how waste tends to go through that process. I think one of the biggest services to reorganise on local government reorganisation is probably waste. You'll find there's a hybrid structure for waste delivery across the county, the point you've made, I think, really. A lot of it will be under contract and probably under contract for a very long time. So I think for those organisations that have been through local government reorganisation in the past, it takes a very long time to harmonise waste collection arrangements. So even if we invested in changes now, we'd still probably see the benefit of all of that before the wider geography was able to harmonise onto a single method of collection, which no doubt it would choose to do so in due course. But as I say, it will take many years to get to that point.
I think most authorities are collecting food separately, as we've said before. Did you want to come on that, Councillor Whitbread?
Thank you, Chairman. Just in relation to the budgetary point, and I know we've had these discussions at overview and scrutiny as well, so I won't repeat points that I've made necessarily, but it is important to say if we don't bring this income in, we're going to have to find savings or income from elsewhere. I'm going to go on to talk about the budget shortly, but we're looking at a 3.4 million gap, subject to some change and movement. We've got a lot of difficult decisions to make in the next financial year. And actually, I think what members need to weigh up is this decision compared to other decisions that we might have to make, whether that be about staff or services. So that's one point that's really important to highlight. I have always had my reservations around this, but we're now the only council in Essex not doing it. I understand the point around local government reorganisation, but as Councillor Small, Mr Small quite rightly pointed out, at some point this is going to be implemented. It's an agreed process in terms of separation that we have to go through. So it's better that we prepare ourselves for it now because it's going to happen in a couple of years down the line anyway. I mean, and as I say, I've always been resistant to this. I don't like extra taxes. I don't like extra charges. But we're in a very difficult situation. And this is a change that I think it's become time to look at and make.
Thank you. Councillor Pond.
Thank you, Chairman. I must say I agree with Councillor Whiston. I think this decision, if it's made, will be premature and it will be extremely unpopular. EFDC is quite unpopular enough as it is with various things, and we are what's called a waste collection. The extra charges really accrue to the Waste Disposal Authority, which is the County Council at the moment, and after LGR will be in the unitary authority and not us. So I think we are making this decision far too soon. I think it is purely on economic grounds. I think it's a disguised way of increasing tax on the people, which I disapprove of, and our group will certainly, judging on extra evidence which has recently been given to overview and scrutiny, and I'd like to thank Councillor Baldwin for that. We shall have to decide when the decision is made, is published, whether to call it.
Thank you, Councillor Pond. I think, first of all, we are giving everybody the option to buy in it or not. We're not saying you have to buy into that service. Secondly, as Andrew said, we're aligning ourselves with the rest of the authorities around, over all of Essex at the moment. And if I'm right, I'm going to ask James to talk this one through, we've got no choice really, have we? We have to separate the food from April.
Yeah, I think there's difficult beyond April. There's difficulty in terms of disposing the commingled food and garden waste. The discussions in terms of funding from county council is only available now if we implement. So if this decision's pushed further down the line, whether that be under LGR, it will end up costing a lot more than it will if we implement now.
Thank you, James. Any other questions? Councillor Murray?
I think my points have been covered, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor John Whitehouse? He's moved.
Yeah, thanks for the updated costings in the report. I mean, as you'll know from the scrutiny meetings, we've got concerns about the level of the charge. I was going to ask about the take-up predictions. I mean, obviously, it's a difficult thing to predict, but I mean, is this based on experience of other authorities? Is there a sort of a tried and tested formula for these things? I mean, how we are, and how robust are these figures, or how much these figures vary, you know, if the take-up varies one way or the other? I imagine because of the vehicles and things, it doesn't sort of, it's not just linear, it must be a moment at which suddenly it costs a lot more, or suddenly it costs a lot less.
Yes, you'll see from Appendix A the different charges across different councils.
Yeah, I was talking about the take-up rather than the charges.
Yeah, and James will come in on the other bit.
So the kind of 40% that's referenced in the report is based on officer experience. It's based on research throughout Essex. So all the Essex authorities that over the last couple of years that have introduced a charge tend to average out around kind of 40%. It's also based on kind of the makeup of our district and property size and the garden. So we're, as officers, we're confident that 40% take-up is easily achievable. But, and your other point, it does vary. So the number of vehicles that are required at the moment are based on that 40%. We're building in enough room that if we got 50%, we've still got enough vehicles to collect the 50%. And obviously as that take-up increased, there's a point where it will kick in that we would need additional vehicles and that, and it could be the case that that extra vehicle might not be at full capacity. But yeah, we've kind of factored this in kind of our discussions at the moment in terms of SFS that provide the waste fleet are factoring all this in, so it gives us enough room that no matter what happens, we will have enough vehicles to provide service.
Councillor Matthews.
Thank you, Chair. It's a difficult one because, you know, as this council, we've historically always kept very, very low taxes. We don't want to be in a position where we're looking to increase any extra charges that's going to burden anyone in the district. However, I do think this is incredibly good value for money. And while I appreciate £60 is a lot of money, however, if you was to compare that for the cost of someone to come and remove that waste, you know, an independent recycling, I mean, you couldn't get them to collect it once for that cost. And I know members and officers who have got family outside of the district would very much welcome a charge of £60 compared to other areas. And it's also the other figures to factor in. You're talking about £450,000 saving. You're talking about £600,000 coming from Essex contributing to the district, because obviously down the line we're saving them a lot of money, so we're getting that kickback. So yes, when you isolate it and you look at it, £60 that people were not spending previously, I totally accept that. However, when you look at the big picture and the amount of savings it's going to make and the additional income that helps support the budget, as Councillor Holly Whitbread said earlier, there's a budget we've got to balance, and if we can provide a great valued service to our residents and meet that, be able to balance that budget in the same way, for me it's an absolute no-brainer that this is a really positive step forward.
Thank you, Councillor Matthews. Councillor Baldwin.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I mean, I'd also like to reiterate some of those points. I do think that under LGR we will need to, moving forward, we will need to harmonise and bring ourselves into alignment with other councils. And I think, you know, the sooner we get this underway, the better, because it will lead to savings in the longer term. And I also think that people, they do have other opportunities to dispose of garden waste, which is, you know, with composting. I have compost myself. And also, I think it's worth noting that it is free to take green waste to the recycling centres, and sometimes I do that. So there are kind of ways of avoiding the charge, and I do very much agree with Councillor Matthews' point that were you to use a private contractor, it would be significantly more expensive, and I think this is a very, very reasonable charge that we want to impose. And plus, of course, we do face a very, very tight budget next year, and I really do think that we need to, you know, try and you know, raise a little bit of revenue to try and offset how much we're going to have to cut from other services. So, yeah, I very much support this.
Thank you, Councillor Baldwin. If there's no other questions, committee, do you agree the three recommendations? Thank you. You're going to get him, Holly?
Thank you. Item 11, Q4 budget monitoring. Councillor Holly Whitbread.
Thank you, Chairman. And first of all, I'd like to welcome Owen Sparks, who's our new Section 151 officer. So it's great to have you here, Owen, and he'll be here to answer some of the difficult questions if we get any today. This is a report for noting today. You'll see it's a report which contains quite a lot of detail. It's basically the final position on the budget from what feels like a long time ago, but from last year, the end of the financial year. Before I start looking a bit at the detail of the report, I'd just like to highlight the difficult budget that we have ahead. We just briefly touched on it then, but we're looking at a £3.4 million gap to fill, which means we're going to have a lot of difficult decisions to make. Last year, we had a really positive and collaborative relationship with scrutiny, and I think that's going to be even more important this year. My door's always open. I'm here to listen to ideas from all members, from all across the chamber, and I think we're going to have a lot of honest and open conversations, whether it be on charges, services. So I'm very conscious that it was very difficult last year, and it's going to be even more difficult this year. So looking at Q4, we're in a relatively positive situation. We did have an underspend of 1.9 million, which is significant overall. And this was largely due to additional business rates income, which we didn't expect, and also underspends in key areas, including ICT, which was a theme throughout the last financial year, but also in transformation, corporate services, and customer and community, as well as finance. We do have some key and remaining pressures, as well as some growing ones. Homelessness is a persistent issue and a real challenge. As we know, when we're paying for temporary accommodation, that pressure goes on to the general fund and becomes a difficulty for us there. Also, planning fees, we're not taking in the planning fees that we'd expect, which is one of the areas which we continue to see pressure in. This report also highlights the housing revenue account, where there is a very significant underspend. I've already had the opportunity to meet with Councillor Smruti Patel, who is the new Cabinet Member for Housing. I welcome her to that role, one that I am familiar with, having done it for 5 years. And we had a really positive conversation around that underspend, because actually, particularly in terms of the capital underspend, it may well mean opportunity for our housing estates as well. The other thing to agree with in this report is the move in reserves. We've got an increase in the contingency reserve to 4 million, which is a very healthy position to be in terms of reserves. I also do note the transformation grant may be something that we'll be looking at and reviewing as part of this budget process as well. I hope members have had the opportunity to read the report in full. I'm happy to take any questions. As I said, I've got Owen here as well for any questions. So that's the report, and I hope members can note and agree on the changes to the reserves. Thank you.
Thank you. Members of the Cabinet. What? Any other members? Councillor Morris.
Hi, thanks very much, Chair. I just had just a couple of questions. Page 77, ICT underspend. I just wanted to ask if this underspend was affecting our expenditure on IT security. I mean, bad actors and hackers don't really care about our budget, they don't care about LGR, and they will do damage if they can. I just want some assurance that the fact that we're underspending isn't affecting our focus on IT security. That's my first question. Second one, on page 78, I note that we're using funds from North Weald to support the lending to Qualis. Can I ask a little bit about what risk analysis was done before that decision was taken? Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Whitbread.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Morris, for those questions. I'm very sorry I was distracted and missed the first part of your question on IT, but I think it was around security.
Yeah, so expenditure on security, I'm saying that's really important in this environment.
I think there was underspend, and I will pass over to Owen, but I think there was underspend on some specific projects. This has actually been something that's been consistent probably for the last kind of 2 years of the budget, but I do note your comment in terms of security. I am actually taking over the portfolio of ICT with the breakup of Councillor Patel's previous portfolio, but I'm afraid I'm not completely on the detail, haven't only done it for a week. So I'm just going to pass over to Owen to answer that question, if that's okay. Thank you.
No, so we continue to be obviously aware of the concerns around cybersecurity, and that is a priority for the service, and that continues to be developed. The underspend, a lot of that is due to, again, revisiting our priorities in the light of LGR, where we need to invest and where we need to wait and look at what's happening with infrastructure going forward as that evolves and becomes clearer. So that's the main reason for the underspend, but security is still a priority for the service, and we continue to invest in the area.
Thank you. Any other members?
Sorry, there was a second question about the lending to North Weald monies lending to Qualis. Page 78.
Can you just repeat the question? Sorry.
Sorry, when I read the budget, I saw on page 78 that some of the income from the sale of the land, the sale of North Weald airfield, had been used as part of the lending to Qualis. And I was asking about what risk analysis had been done before that decision was taken.
Thank you. Councillor Holly Whitbread.
Thank you. I will pass to Owen. Obviously, this was mentioned as part of the last budget. I'm sorry for my lack of concentration on those questions, Councillor Morris. But obviously, this was looked at as part of the budget process, and it was agreed as part of that. On the risk assessment, I will pass over, but obviously, this site is a key strategic site in terms of the council's projects moving forward and the important use of Northfield Airfield. But if it's okay, I'll pass to Owen. Thank you.
So that forms part of the Treasury strategy. So what we've done is use internal borrowing instead of borrowing from the markets. So as we had the cash, instead of borrowing, we've used that to really pass that money on to Qualis. So it's part of the normal process, as Councillor Whitbread outlined, about the risk assessment. It's just how we've managed that within our internal resources as opposed to going to the market to borrow.
Thank you. No other members? Oh, Councillor Holly Whitbread.
I should have also introduced Ms Donnelly. So we now have a full cohort of senior finance officers, which is fantastic news for a difficult budget ahead. Thank you.
Good. Superb. We've got the recommendation as set out on the paper to note this report. Can we note it? Thank you very much. We then move on to item 12, which was a slightly late report, and one of the reasons why we delayed the Cabinet by a week was in order to give members an update, an opportunity to look into local government reorganisation. I thought it was this was a good time now to start making members more aware of local government reorganisation. We've had the portfolio holder advisory group, and the Chairman of Council made some really good comments and questions from that portfolio holder advisory group, which Andrew answered in a very balanced and sensible way. And I thought actually that was a good process by which to develop this report that's come to you this evening on the steps forward and what's actually happening with local government reorganisation. It has been a very intensive process. In recent times, it's taken an awful lot of officer time up. I think Andrew and Jen and Owen are on regular meetings for this project, and it's now at that time when some decisions will start to be made. Obviously, what we've always said is we wouldn't make any decisions until we had all the evidence before us, and we now have received quite a weight of evidence from various sources, and obviously from in-house as well. There's some important key pieces that are still missing around local government debt, because all local government has borrowing. There's good borrowing and bad borrowing, and it's going to be an important factor as you put together future unitaries. And one of the things that I think, Councillor Whitehouse. Oh, thank you. One of the important things about this is the sustainability of whatever we do in the future. There's no point in setting up councils to fail, especially when they're delivering some of your most important services. And remembering, we're not trying to create new district councils. We are effectively creating a number of councils that will be like county councils, that will be delivering adult social care, will be delivering children's services, will be delivering highways, and will have much bigger budgets to contend with, and a whole range of different services, in addition to what we do as districts now. So it's really important that we get the right number of unitaries. Personally, I've seen the evidence. I've seen it develop as we go along. I know that if the 5 option was followed, it would be financially challenged from the outset, and all the reports that we've had to date show that very clearly. 2 is the optimum number of unitaries, but of course with the size of Greater Essex, that would be challenging, and therefore, as I think Andrew says within this report, and I like the phrasing of it, is that 3 becomes your Goldilocks moment. It's the right size, it's about the right size from a population point of view, it's financially sustainable, and there is it's functional for the sort of things that we'll be doing in the future. We believe as we progress into the autumn, there could be up to maybe 3 business cases, possibly 4. We heard earlier on today. There is a potential of a business case from Thurrock that I think you'll find interesting for 4. There is 2 that I see as in the options for 3 unitaries that both have similar financial outcomes, slightly different on place related items, but both 3.2 and 3.4 of the options that we have seen make sense to go forward with. There are other options available, of course, but happy to take questions. Everyone's had the opportunity to see the report and some of the documentation. Cabinet colleagues, Councillor Janet Whitehouse.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I've got a number of questions on the report. 2.6 mentions these neighbourhood area committees, which are going to be perhaps the sort of local voice. How does that sit with areas like Epping Forest, which does have parishes? Is there going to be parishes and these neighbourhood councils, which, as it says in the report, just be having another 3 tiers? I just want to ask where they fit in. I don't know if you want to reply as we go through.
Yeah, shall I answer one at a time and then maybe call officers in to help with some of the detail? The government's white paper that started the process of local government reorganisation is very quiet on town and parish councils. That's because at this stage they're not looking at what they do or what they're about. So there is no mention at this stage of town and parish councils within that. What the government is very clear on is these local committees that they're keen to see as part and parcel of this. And I'm trying to think which letter it was, and Andrew might remember better than me. There was a letter that said they did not want to see the creation of any more town and parish councils. So those that exist. They're not looking to create more parish councils. And these local committees will be that important conduit between the new unitaries and local communities. However, I think where you've got good town councils like Loughton as a prime example, I can see them playing an active part as part of these local committees and other councils. North Weald's very good, and Matching, and all around the district we've got some good examples. But of course Harlow isn't parished, so they would not be looking to create new parish councils, because otherwise you'd be starting to look at almost recreating the tier again. Andrew, have I got that right?
Yes, I think so. I mean, neighbourhood committees are really seen as a committee of the council, really, but populated only by members of that area. And it's a bit like an area planning committee, for example, that we used to have. So, made up of areas from that committee to make decisions relevant to that area only. As the leader says, not all of Essex is parished. So you can't rely on parishes as a mechanism to deliver some of those more local services, really. The government's preference is neighbourhood area committees. There isn't a single blueprint for how they would operate. In fact, how they would operate will very much be a decision of the new unitary organisations. It'll be for them to determine how they structure those committees, what powers they give to those committees, but also how they choose to work with parish and town councils as well, alongside of those neighbourhood area committees. But we all know that the unitary organisations created, probably, whether it's 5 or 3 or 2 or any other number, will be much bigger than they currently are today. And so they'll need some kind of additional structure to make sure that local voices are heard, understood, and feel part of the decision-making process as well.
I have quite a few comments to make, so I don't expect such a long answer to all of them. Okay. So the next one is 2.7, where it mentions a survey being jointly led by Jen. Who is this? What is this survey asking, and who is being asked to respond to it?
Andrew.
So it's really, it's a targeted survey, really. No, so when I say targeted, I mean it's a proportional survey. So it doesn't involve, it's not gone out to all residents of Essex as a whole. It's gone out to a representative sample of views, including some focus groups as well, to make sure that the people are able to ask questions in a not just a single give us your views, and an opportunity to have a two-way dialogue about people's views around it. And what it's really seeking to do is not, do you prefer this type of structure over that type of structure? What it's looking to do is ask those people, what is it important to you in terms of local government? What do you value? What do you need? What sort of outcomes are you looking for from your council? And that will help us shape the structure and design of councils to make sure that we respond to what people's needs are, or that people's considered to be their needs. There will be an opportunity for a formal consultation exercise once the government's received the bids. It will then form a view, and then it will go out to all residents, organisations within Essex to express their views about which one of those they prefer.
Will we see the result of that survey? Is that survey going to be available to us to see?
I think the results of that survey will be fed through to all members, I think, as part of the overall business case, so that when you get to consider the business case, you'll see what people's feedback has been as part of that process.
Okay. 211. You talk here, it says in 211, social care cannot be disrupted whilst local government is reorganised, and the fewer alterations there are to its current structure, the more this risk is minimised. That doesn't really make sense to me, because at the moment social care is a county responsibility. It's going to move to the unitary councils. One move to a unitary council. It doesn't really matter if the unitary council is one of 3 or 5 or 4. It's one move. So I can't really see what's behind that. There's no need to respond if you don't want to. It's just a point that I wanted to make, unless you very much disagree.
I think, no, Essex is one of the most complicated areas that the government will have to face when it deals with local government reorganisation because of the current structure and its size, really. I think there will be disruption. I think that's inevitable, although there are ways to mitigate that disruption on day one and push the disruption till later on in the process, after the organisation has established itself. But I think it's fair to say that the more divisions you create of the existing structure, the more complicated it becomes. So, if you divide it twice, for example, that's a lot easier than if you're trying to divide it 5 times. And I think that's the point that's made there, really. That the more times you try to divide it, the more organisations you create to deliver it, the more organisations the police have to deal with, for example, when they're trying to deal with social care issues, who have different policies and different approaches to things, the more complicated the landscape becomes. So the fewer iterations there are of it, the easier it becomes to manage and to deal with.
Okay, nearly there. 2.15, there's a reference in that to option 3.2, and it comes up again in another paragraph, but there's no option 3.2 in the report. I mean, what is the 3.2 of? What's point 1 and point 3 and 4 and whatever else might be there?
So I think basically option 3.2 was a southern unitary, and then the rest of the county divided east and west. And it would put Epping Forest in with Uttlesford, Harlow, Brentwood and with Chelmsford. But there is also an alternative 3.4 that looks very similar financially, gives a very similar population, but swaps out Uttlesford for Malden. So still 3 unitary options, but slightly different to the one that's in here. And the county is currently leaning towards 3.4, which is the Malden rather than the Uttlesford option. Both are on the table at this point in time. Both are being worked through for further information to try and understand the relative merits of each of those. Sorry for not including a diagram. I know the members of the Portfolio Holder Advisory Group have seen a diagram that explains those different options. But I'm not quite sure at this point in time whether that is a public document that I'm allowed to share, hence the reason for trying to explain it verbally as opposed to giving you a map that would probably be easy to understand.
Okay, and the last one is 2.17. It mentions here that the leadership of Epping Forest District has largely reached the same conclusion as Essex, and somewhere else it talks, I imagine, the Cabinet. The leader will keep the Cabinet and members of the Portfolio Advisory Group updated. There's just no input at all from the rest of us at all. I mean, the Cabinet, the leadership team is mostly officers, well, all officers. It's a very, very small group of people who are making these decisions.
Yeah.
And I really feel this just isn't democratic. I mean, the residents ask me sometimes, when are we going to be consulted? And it's not much comfort to say, well, you're not, and, you know, or not at this stage, and, you know, members haven't either. So, you know, I just think that there should be an opportunity for us to see these business papers, for us to make our decision on where it's going. And I know there's talk of having a special council meet later on, but it's far too late. By then, whatever we say is not going to be taken into account because the case will have gone in. So I think it's really important that as soon as possible, all members have the opportunity to see these papers that you're making your case on, and we have an opportunity to put our views. It's very economically based in the report, and that's important, obviously. But, you know, I just think we would like to be involved in this. It's a very big decision, and it's not right. There's just this very small number of people who are saying what our district's going to do. So I do hope we can have a proper council meet on it very soon.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Whitehouse. And you make a good point. But the reason we set up the PAG group was in order that members of that group could share information with their own groups. Obviously, some of the papers currently are private until they're made public, which is like the options appraisals and everything else, because there's detailed information. Personally, I'm happy to have wider debates at overview and scrutiny here, and indeed, when it comes to the final decision, it will go to Council and then to Cabinet because it would be an executive decision. But I'm more than happy to have debates with people and to discuss how we get to the options. It's not easy because there is so much information at the moment. It's knowing what we can share quite openly and what we can't share. But I am happy during the summer that as much information as possible is put out there to members, bearing in mind this is moves quite quickly. If I said to you, I sit on a number of committees that relate to local government reorganisation, and I know our team here have been literally 2 or 3 meetings a week, sometimes if not more, and regular discussions are going on. But it is really important that as a council, the eventual decision is made by all of us. You know, it can't be just me. It can't be just the PAG. It can't just be the Cabinet. It will require a full council meeting to discuss as well. Councillor Andrew.
Thank you. I mean, I think it would have been easier if we had arrived at a clear set of options really early on in the process. But the reality is, you know, the work that's being done is so driven by the data, and the data has emerged late in the process and still emerging at this point in time. And it makes it really difficult to arrive at a set of options to share with members, to have an informed conversation about. And I think, as the leaders made the point really, this is something that has to be a decision of the whole council. All members have to be informed at the point in time that they get a say. And there will be an opportunity, you know, in advance of the council arriving at a conclusion, if it does, and before the business cases is submitted. And I think, you know, there are probably opportunities for more information to be given to members before we arrive at that meeting as well, really. But if I ask you, was it possible to give more information to members in a way that was digestible before today? Probably not, because very much the opinions and the views and the business cases and the options is still coalescing at this point in time, which has made it extremely difficult, one, for officers in terms of, you know, actually building business cases, but 2, in terms of giving that information to a wider group of members. I think, and I don't want to speak for the leader necessarily, but the portfolio holder advisory group is to kind of share some of that uncertainty and the emerging views and the stuff that's kind of coming out of the ether really at this point in time. But without any clarity, it's more about just trying to guide the leader's hand in trying to know which way should he be going at this point in time. And I think it's been really useful for that, but not with the intention of denying a wider membership of the council of information that is critical to them. So very much in the space of trying to make sure that all members are properly informed and properly able to make a decision in due course.
Thank you. Councillor Murray.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. First of all, can I thank you again for allowing me to be part of the advisory group, even though I'm a sole independent. I do thank you for that, and I think I've managed to attend all the meetings apart from one which, for very good reasons, was scheduled very quickly without much notice. So I have tried to put an input. And I just want to share some of the comments that I've made along the way, and then I have got a couple of questions just to clarify, because they are the questions I'm being asked by members of the public, and they're the only questions I'm being asked by members of the public as regards this item. I know we've got no choice but to do it, but I still pick up very little demand for it. I've not had a single resident or constituent ask me, you know, we really want this. There's very little understanding of it. I think that applies particularly to the model of the Executive Mayor of Essex. That's the one thing that they do know is happening, and it's the one thing that certainly the people I speak to aren't really happy about. So it will be interesting to see what the turnout will be in that election, and if it is high, I'm tempted to think it's going to be high for the wrong reasons, not a genuine interest in how the Executive Mayor of Essex should be conducted. You're absolutely right, I think, Chairman, from certainly the business cases I've seen and the work that I've seen. If we're going down this road, then three unitary authorities across Essex seem to be the best. They're slightly more in touch than if we went for two, and in terms of functionality and finance, they definitely seem better than going down to four. I wasn't convinced about that until I had a really good look at it. But having said that, I still think they're going to be out of touch. So I do think an important part of this further down the road as a separate issue, because it's not part of this at the moment, is that parish councils are invited to take more powers if they wish. Because there will be some parish councils that won't wish to and won't be able to and don't want to, but there will be other parish councils that will want to. I'll make a last point, which I don't think I've made within the advisory portfolio group, but I am really worried about what kind of people you're going to get to stand for these unitary authorities, and I'm not making a party political point here. You're going to be talking about single-member wards, possibly of 5,000. And if they're not single-member wards, they're going to be larger wards with 2 members, but effectively 1 member per 5,000 residents. You're going to have this, key services coming down from what were county, highways, social services and education. And I'm just not convinced that across the party structures and across the independent structures, you're going to find the quality of people who are going to want to do that. It's essentially a full-time job, I would argue. We're going to be very much like the London boroughs, where it's a full-time job and the turnover is exceedingly high. So I'm really worried about that, and I think that's a real downside. So if I just ask the 2 questions that I am repeatedly asked about, particularly bearing in mind, in my view, the wrong decision the county made last year as regards elections, can I have it confirmed publicly, because I've had it confirmed via email, that next year, May 2026, we will be having the first elections for the Executive Mayor of Essex, and we will be having the 3rd elections for the 3rd place candidates in Epping Forest from 2024. They will be up for re-election in 2026. Is that right?
To the best of my knowledge, that is correct. There is definitely the mayoral elections next year. And there will be, at this stage, district council elections this year, and I have no reason to believe that they will not happen. So I'm expecting the 3rd elections to take place. Again, I can't see why they would be cancelled unless something was to change, and it would have to be done by government.
Okay. Thank you, Chairman.
just to support the leader's statement, really, the MHCLG have been asked repeatedly this question by all councils up and down the country, as you would imagine, really, and the answer has consistently been from MHCLG that elections will happen next year.
Thank you. Councillor Murray, do you have a question?
No, those were the 2 questions.
Oh, right. Councillor Murray, you made some really good points there earlier on. Obviously, we've got no control over the people who come forward to take on the roles on unitary councils, but that's the problem that's been in local government now for a period of time, is finding candidates who want to be actively engaged in local government. So I think that's a challenge to all of us anyway. I think it's a really good point, well made. I agree with your other conclusions. I think if just look at, we've had the benefit of seeing the in-depth options appraisals, but I think at some point that needs to be shared with a wider audience, and perhaps, Andrew, during your meetings with chiefs, we can get some clarity over what we can release. That would be helpful. Any other members? Both Councillor Kaufmans.
Thank you. I'm going to be really grumpy. I don't like LGR at all. What's the point? Because I'm only one voice. I'm sure others don't like it. There's a lot of common sense representing us, so I'm grateful for that common sense, but it can get lost in the fury and the excitement of something bigger and something better. I think the whole thing is nonsense, and there should be a better way to do this. Having one member for 4,000 to 5,000 people is just plainly barking mad. It's ridiculous. And you've got people who have a day job as well and do a lot of this for, well, you do it, you don't do it for the money, you do it because you enjoy it and you want to do good work and put something back. So you're going to completely push out people who are perhaps a little bit older, who can then have got the time to become good. The best councillors are the most experienced ones, are the older ones, in my opinion, good young ones coming through. But the older councillors cannot cope with 5,000 people. It is just nonsense. And somebody should be saying that. Somebody's got to put their hand up and say, that's ridiculous. What happened to localism? We're going to have committees deciding things based in Chelmsford for something local here. It's hopeless. I've got to go along with it because I have no choice. But I do think much more clarity. By the time it gets to a committee or discussion here, decisions will have been made. I've been in that ship before. It's ridiculous. How can you decide things by 56 councillors here? You can't. So it has to be a nominated group. I sort of understand that. Much more transparency. People have been having a go. The vocal minority have a go at us, but actually we've done a bloody good job. People don't realise how the job we've done, because you only hear from the noisy few. You don't hear from the silent majority. We've done a very good job, and when we're gone, they'll say they did a good job. I wish this hadn't have happened. And it's obvious. I've got the T-shirt, I've got the book. It's ridiculous. But no one else seems to want to speak up against it.
I did 12 years ago, Councillor Kaufman, to be honest with you. I've been down this route numerous times, and I have to say to you, I see a slightly different view to yourself. I can remember back 12 years ago when we discussed the same situation then. I think we were talking about 3 possible unitaries back then, and we've been talking about 2 unitaries for a long time since then. But if you look at the state of local government presently, during the pandemic we learned the county council in some ways was too big, districts were too small, and parishes bent over backwards but could only do so much. Government after government has changed its focus on devolution and has become more focused on having a mayor for each county area. So devolution you have to separate away from LGR to a degree, because that will happen regardless. Financially, you've heard the situation on the council's budgets and the challenges ahead for the coming year. I think if we carried on the way we were, and this is for most districts, boroughs and cities, the world will become increasingly more financially challenging to the point where you'll see more councils falling over. And it's not going to get any better, because we've already seen some of the information coming through in the last spending review that means money that was given in grants to districts, boroughs and cities in particular is going to be redistributed, which is the government's will, and they're the government of the day. But local government reorganisation, if we get it right, and we must get it right for the residents of Essex, it will deliver, but we have to get it right. And I think Councillor Murray picked up on the two key areas of, again, social care, children's services. At the moment, and this is why it's important we get it right, is at the moment, if you look at how Essex delivers adult social care, it's rated by CQC as good. Children's services are rated as outstanding. Our partner unitaries aren't quite at such a high level as what we are over in Thurrock and in Southend, but we need to make sure, whatever happens for the people of Essex, that we do the best we can. So this is going to happen. I'd rather be in there shaping it, getting the best we can for our residents, than being on the sidelines and it happening to us, because it's going to happen. So I want to be actively engaged as a council and making sure our voice is clearly heard, and that's what I think our duty is to our residents. Probably doesn't please you, but that's my honest opinion at the present time. Councillor Will Kaufman.
Thank you, Chair. Is it too early to have a planning question? Are you up for a development planning question at all? Because I just can't quite fathom in my mind how this is going to work. Speaking of money that's been spent and needs to be spent, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, we've spent over £1 million just implementing our local plan, which, if LGR goes the way it is, our local plan is suddenly... what are we going to do? Are we going to merge? Are we going to take bits of everyone's local plans and combine them into, effectively, an old money, what I would have called a regional spatial strategy? Yeah. But how does that then work? Because planning in Epping Forest, I mean, heaven forbid they put us in with Malden. How are we looking at a 5-year housing need for an area that size? Yeah. How does it work? Where will the offices be based? How will the planning committees be based? I mean, I'm very happy to have site visits on the coast, but I just can't see how this is in any way, shape or form practical. We can't get case officers in the local area to help us determine planning applications now, let alone, I mean, as I say, if it is, heaven forbid, out to Malden, how many 1,000 square miles are we talking? How on earth can we run that effectively? I can't see it.
I'm sure we'll reach the challenge, and it will be a challenge. I haven't got all the answers tonight. You wouldn't expect me to. At the end of the day, at the moment, until 27, when they have the shadow unitary elections, and 28, when the unitary becomes a real entity, obviously there's a lot of work to be done. But our local plan is our local plan. If we go with Chelmsford, their local plan is their local plan. And if we go with Malden, their local plan will be their local plan. And I know the good news is that Andrew has done this before, so I'm sure he's going to give us some answer.
So presumably there'll be a duty to cooperate comes in, presumably to link the two.
Until we've had time to review and such, Andrew.
I think each local plan will continue to be stay in place really until the new unitary is set up, and then they'll have to start a new local plan process for the whole new area. But until such time as that concluded, each of the existing local plans holds weight in those areas for planning decisions purposes.
Interesting.
Thank you. Councillor Brooks.
I know I've not been part of the advisory group, but when we read the first papers, we talked about the shadow authority being elected in 2027, I think. How is that expected to work? Is there a bit more detail available now?
Thank you. Andrew, you've dealt with this before, haven't you?
It will be part of the structural orders that the government determines when they've decided on which option that they want to be the option that is implemented. So that structural order will talk a bit about what the shadow elections are, and more importantly, how many members initially, under what boundaries. I anticipate, because the County Council has just been for a boundary review, that the County Council's warding pattern, new warding pattern, will be the one that's used. And then there will be multiples of members for those wards that will give you a number somewhere in the right region of around up to about 100, say, give or take. So that will be the initial arrangement. But as soon as the new shadow authority turns into the new organisation itself on vesting day, then one of the first things that will happen is the Local Government Boundary Commission for England will undertake another full review of that area to determine a new warding pattern that will apply on the elections there, you know, for the next full elections of that organisation in 3-4 years' time.
Thank you. Members, this was really brought this evening for you to note and to give some understanding of what's going on. I take on board Councillor Whitehouse's earlier comments, and we'll find ways of trying to keep members better informed, whether that be a member workshop in the summer or some other way, and we will undertake to see what documents we can release to all members so they can get the best possible indication of what's going on. Members, can we just note that report for now? Thank you. Now we're going to move on to any other business. There is no any other business. We need to move into the exclusion of the public and press for 2 items for consideration. If I have to read out the following statement, to consider whether under section 100 (A) 4 of the Local Government Act 1972, the public and press should be excluded from the meeting for the items of business set out below on grounds that they will involve the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in the following paragraphs of Part 1 of Schedule 12A of the Act as amended, or are confidential under section 100 (A) 2. Members, can we agree to go into private session? Agreed. Thank you. And can we please turn off the webcast?